My name is Arn Kislenko. I'm a historian. My specialty is the 20th century, but I've come here to Jerusalem because I want to find out what life was like in the first century. Look at this, a job that's still here after 2,000 years. Money changer. In this famous scene from the Gospels, Jesus sees the money changers in the temple. He overturns their tables and drives them out of the temple. Everybody's always been interested in the commotion Jesus caused. But I want to know what all these people were doing at the temple that day, and what they all did for a living. What were their jobs like? And what drove the economy? Many of the jobs here were connected to the land. On the day the Gospels tell us Jesus overturned the money changers' table, some of the people in the temple were likely farmers. They would have come here to bring their first crops as an offering of thanks. With your life dependent on your crops and animals, you figure everyone would try and get along. But the Bible tells us that Adam and Eve had two sons. Cain was a farmer, and Abel was a shepherd. And we know how that turned out. The Gospels report that people with a variety of ailments and diseases came to ritual baths such as this one, the Pool of Siloam in Jerusalem. The most famous was a blind man who had asked Jesus for help. Jesus mixes his saliva with the earth and puts it on the blind man's eyes, telling him to immerse in the Pool of Siloam. The blind man does, and then, miraculously, he can see. It's an inspiring story. But I'm also interested in the other stories we see in this scene. Look at all these sick people. Why have they all come here? And which of them will get better? When you got sick in the first century, what did you do about it? Don't let the flowers fool you. In biblical times, when your life was going down the tubes, this was one of the places you ended up.
So this is Hell Valley. So it's a place with a lot of blood and gore and guts, you know. In fact, this is the field of blood, you know, Akeldama, where Judas, after he betrayed Jesus, then came and hung himself on a tree or garroted himself.
Oh, this is the spot.
Yes.
So I'm in the place where the Gospels tell us the man who betrayed Jesus died. It's also where the oldest leper ever found in the Holy Land was discovered. I'm with archaeologist Shimon Gibson, the man who found him. He was wrapped in a shroud in here.
So this is the tomb. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm going to find out what Shimon's amazing discovery here tells us about disease in the first century.
I was really amazed when I saw in one of the recesses a shroud from 2,000 years ago. It's the only shroud that we have in Jerusalem from the time of Jesus. And this was found in this tomb.
2,000 years ago, temple guards and soldiers converged in Jerusalem's Garden of Gethsemane to arrest Jesus, setting in motion the most famous trial of all time. But I want to know who all these people are, what laws govern their lives, and what brought them all together on this fateful night. Because here, we're not only seeing the arrest of Jesus, we're seeing what happens when two societies collide. At the time, the Roman Empire was occupying Judea. So in the first century, how did the Romans keep the peace among people who had totally different beliefs about law and order? I think it's time I tried my hand at being a formidable enemy. But first, I need to learn about my weapons.
Here you have the gladius, the sword. Gladius having given the name to the word gladiator, by the way. A short stabbing sword. You stab with it. You don't fight like that. You stab.
It's very short.
It is very short because they calculated that for the stabbing technique that they had in fighting, that was the best length of the sword. They calculated, the Romans were very, very smart in engineering and into the minutest detail.
And it's very light as well.
This is the pilum, the throwing javelin. And let's look at the tip here. You know, it's a little bit like a bullet point here.
Yeah.
And the width of the steel here is just so that it bends when it has penetrated the enemy. That
Right
is,
there. It
yeah.
bends right there.
The idea with bending, of course, is that it makes it impossible for the enemy to use it and throw it back at you.
It's a one-time spear.
It's a one-time spear.
And it looks
exactly.
It really is light. Again, I'm
exactly.
amazed.
They were well equipped, and they knew that they were much better equipped, and the enemy also knew that, which was, of course, a very, very important psychological fact.
Scare the enemy.
Scare the enemy, absolutely.
How usual or commonplace was the idea of crucifixion under Roman law?
Crucifixion was fairly common, and the Romans were pretty good at crucifying people. I mean, certainly after major wars and insurrections, there were crosses lining the road for a long way.
Well, it would have a very sobering effect on the populace, right, to see that kind of obvious act of Roman power.
That's right. It's designed to be visual. It's designed to be as humiliating and shameful as possible.